ओम का नाम है प्रभु का नाम, ओम है परमात्मा, ओम का सुमिरन है अनमोल, ओम का सुमिरन है अनमोल। ऋषि मुनियों ने देखा तोल, ओम का सुमिरन है अनमोल। ऋषि मुनियों ने देखा तोल, ओम है चंचल, ओम है चंचल चित्त की लगाम, ओम है चंचल चित्त की लगाम। भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम, ओम है परम पिता का। भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम, ओम है परम पिता का नाम। भज लो। राजा जी की अगर इस तबले की थाप पे भी आप हाथ बांध के बैठ सकते हो तो भैया पता नहीं आपको क्या जगाएगा, मुझे नहीं पता। कम ऑन। ओम है परम पिता का नाम, भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम। ओम को सुमिरो, ओम को सुमिरो आठों याम, ओम को सुमिरो आठों याम। भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम, निश्चय होगा शुभ परिणाम, निश्चय होगा शुभ परिणाम। भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम। इस पे न्योछावर, इस पे न्योछावर शब्द तमाम। भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम। ओम है चंचल, ओम है चंचल चित्त की लगाम, ओम है चंचल चित्त की लगाम। भज लो प्यारे, भज लो प्यारे, भज लो प्यारे ओम का नाम। मेरे भाई लोगों से मुझे उम्मीद है, कुछ लोग आप बड़े अच्छे से एंजॉय कर रहे थे, ताली बजा रहे थे, कुछ लोग आप नहीं बजा रहे थे। प्लीज़ क्लैप करिए, आपको आनंद आएगा क्योंकि आप देन यू फील लाइक अ पार्ट ऑफ इट। सो प्लीज़ सभी से निवेदन है। थैंक यू। अब एक थोड़ा स्लो भजन है। शिवोहम शिवोहम कर संस्कृति का आपने भजन सुना है, तो उसी का हिंदी रूपांतर है। न मन हूँ न बुद्धि न चित्त अहंकार। बहुत शुद्ध हिंदी है। आई थिंक जो भी लोग बैठे हैं सबको हिंदी अच्छे से आती है। न मन हूँ न बुद्धि न चित्त अहंकार, न जिह्वा नयन नासिका न कर्णद्वार, न चलता न रुकता न कहता न सुनता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। World consciousness starts from our own consciousness, so that's what it is. Jagat Chetana hu Anadi Ananta. स्टेज पे बहुत गर्म है। ना मन हो न बुद्धि न चित्त अहंकार, न जिह्वा नयन नासिका कर्णद्वार, न चलता न रुकता, न चलता न रुकता, न कहता न सुनता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि मन हूँ न बुद्धि न चित्त अहंकार, न जिह्वा नयन नासिका कर्ण द्वार, न चलता न रुकता न कहता न सुनता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। ना मैं प्राण हूँ, ना मैं प्राण हूँ, ना ही हूँ पंचवायु, ना मैं प्राण हूँ, ना ही हूँ पंचवायु, ना मुझ में घृणा ना कोई लगाव, ना लोभ मोह ईर्षा ना अभिमान भाव, धन धर्म काम मोक्ष सब अप्रभाव, न मैं धन राग गुण दोष विषय पर्यंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। ना पुण्य ना पाप, ना पुण्य ना पाप, सुख दुख से विलग हूँ, ना मंत्र ना ज्ञान ना तीर्थ और यज्ञ हूँ, ना भोग हूँ ना भोजन, ना भोग हूँ ना भोजन, ना अनुभव ना भोक्ता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। ना मृत्यु का भय है, ना मृत्यु का भय है, ना मतभेद जाना, ना मेरा पिता माता मैं हूँ अजन्मा, ना मृत्यु का भय है, ना मतभेद जाना, ना मेरा पिता माता मैं हूँ अजन्मा, निराकार साकार, निराकार साकार शिव सिद्ध संता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता। मैं निर्लिप्त निर्विकल्प, मैं निर्लिप्त निर्विकल्प सूक्ष्म जगत हूँ, चैतन्य रूप और सर्वत्र व्याप्त हूँ, मैं निर्लिप्त निर्विकल्प सूक्ष्म जगत हूँ, चैतन्य रूप और सर्वत्र व्याप्त हूँ, मैं हूँ भी नहीं, मैं हूँ भी नहीं, और कण कण रमनता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, भौतिक चराचर ये जगमग अंधेरा, ये इसका ये उसका ये तेरा ये मेरा, ये भौतिक चराचर ये जगमग अंधेरा, ये उसका ये इसका ये तेरा ये मेरा, ये आना ये जाना इस जगत से, ये आना ये जाना लगाना है फेरा, ये नश्वर जगत थोड़े दिन का है डेरा, ये प्रश्नों में उत्तर, ये प्रश्नों में उत्तर उन्नीहित दिगंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, न मन हूँ न बुद्धि न चित्त अहंकार, न जिह्वा नयन नासिका कर्णद्वार, न चलता न रुकता न कहता न सुनता, न चलता न रुकता न कहता न सुनता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि अनंता, जगत चेतना हूँ अनादि क्षमा कीजिएगा, थोड़ा कठिन है ये भजन। हर बार जब आती हूँ तो थोड़ा नर्वस रहती हूँ। राजा जी को मैं बोली आने के पहले कि मैं सुन रही हूँ कैलाश खेर जी को और उन्हीं की पिच में शुरू हो गई गाने को। सो आई हैड टू एडजस्ट टू माई ओन पिच। एक बहुत ही प्यारा है भजन, हमारे आर्य समाज में अक्सर गाती हूँ मैं। पवित्र मन रखो, पवित्र तन रखो, पवित्रता मनुष्यता की शान है। जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। हाफ नोट ऊपर जाएंगे। पवित्र मन रखो, छोटा सा भजन है, सुनिएगा, बहुत सुंदर वर्ड्स है। पवित्र मन रखो, पवित्र तन रखो, पवित्रता मनुष्यता की शान है। जो मन वचन कर्म से, जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। वो जो वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। पवित्र मन रखो, पवित्र तन रखो, पवित्रता मनुष्यता की शान है। जो मन वचन कर्म से, जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। ओ जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। सबका करो सत्कार, आदर्श व्यक्ति की यही पहचान है। जो मन वचन कर्म से, जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। ओ जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। पवित्र पवित्र तन रखो, पवित्रता मनुष्यता की शान है। जो मन वचन कर्म से, जो मन वचन कर्म से पवित्र है, चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। ओम चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। ओ चरित्रवान ही यहाँ महान है। थैंक यू। मेरे राजा जी के लिए जोरदार तालियां बजा दीजिए। समय की पाबंदी नहीं हो तो मैं भी 20 मिनट और गाऊंगी। थैंक यू सो मच।
स्मृति जी चिंता मत करिए, आपका 1 घंटे का नहीं 2 घंटे का प्रोग्राम कराऊंगा आप जल्दी से, आप चिंता नहीं करिए। नमस्ते। आज का दिन बड़ा शुभ है। आर्य समाज में आप सब लोगों का स्वागत है। सो आज हमारे बीच में वी हैव ए वेरी डिस्टिंग्विश्ड स्पीकर, श्री अनिल मेहता जी। अनिल मेहता जी is a chemical engineer by discipline. He is from IIT Kharagpur and then he did his masters from UT Austin. उसके बाद अनिल मेहता जी ने 30 साल इंडस्ट्री में काम किया एंड 2018 ही रिटायर्ड। लेकिन बचपन से इन्हें भारत की जो हिस्ट्री है उस पर डाउट होता था कि ये अंग्रेजों ने हिस्ट्री जो बताई है वो सच बताई है कि गलत बताई है। एंड इन 2018 वंस ही रिटायर्ड, इनको लगा कि अब मेरे को उस पर रिसर्च करनी चाहिए। तो पिछले आई थिंक 7 साल तो डेफिनेटली बहुत काम किया एंड ही हैज़ रिटन ए वंडरफुल बुक जो इन्होंने मेरे को 3-4 महीने पहले दी थी एंड वी हैव बीन इन टच। तो टुडे इज़ अ परफेक्ट डे फॉर हिज टॉक। सो अनिल मेहता जी, अब आप ही अपने शब्दों में बताइए, मेरे पास तो शब्द नहीं है, आप ही अपने शब्दों में बताइए भारत के इतिहास के बारे में। आइए।
Thank you, Ashutosh ji, for the very kind introduction. And also, I want to thank Ashutosh ji as well as the entire leadership of Arya Samaj of Houston for giving me this opportunity. You know, this is a precious time. I know this is, it's not easy to give me this time, but you find it valuable. So I really appreciate it to share what I have learned over the last 6-7 years, mainly over the last 6-7 years of our true history. It's so I would like to share that with you, with your kind permission. And before I do that, I would like to present a copy of this book to Arya Samaj of Houston for its library. So I really appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. See if I can. Out there. Oh, okay. Yeah. In the- in the seat. Oh, अच्छा, okay, 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 इस पे आएगा. Okay, ठीक है. Okay. हाँ, okay, okay. So the the book, it says it's so the my talk is mainly and my research is mainly focused on the ancient India's history. So my book ends at 1192 AD when Delhi fall. No, Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated. So I end my book there. But it starts from the earliest time. Timeline wise, 3139 BC, that's when our chronology, the timeline starts. And my book accounts for each and every year from 3139 BC to 1192, not in just one place, but in several places. But the book also covers the history before that. We just don't have the precise timeline before 3139 BC. So I'll try to now see. I will respect the time. I have, I think, about 40 minutes, and I would like to save about last 10 minutes or so for questions and answers. So I'll try to cover my presentation in 30 minutes. So the outline that I have over here is, I think I'll cover about up to first 5 parts, why this book, Panchanga and calendars, distortions, when, why, and how they happened. Extensive Vanshavalis, that's genealogies, what we call, and Mahabharata war. And then if I have time, maybe I'll go a little bit into the further details. But this is what I'm planning to cover today, hopefully. So question naturally is, I mean, there are a lot of books coming out every month, maybe every year or so. And the question is, why this book? Yeah. So I'll try to answer this, why this book? So there is a contradiction in the history that we have been taught. India is, as we all know, that India is acknowledged as one of the four oldest civilizations of the world. India, China, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, or Sumer, or Iraq. So these are the four ancient civilizations. But now, when you look at some details, Egypt's earliest kings are dated to 3100 BC. Then you look at Mesopotamia, the earliest states are dated to 3200 BC. Then you look at China, earliest are dated to 1500 to 1700 BC. And by the way, BC is before Christ. That means, when the current year is 2025, so you have to add 2025 to whatever the number is, 31, for those who are not familiar with BC. So, but when you look at India's history, the earliest people in our history, in the textbooks that are used in colleges and schools, earliest people are Mahavir Swami, 599 BC birth, and Gautam Buddha, 563 BC birth. We don't have any person dated before that. But we have the Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and not just those two sites. There are thousands of sites in India which have been dated to 3000 plus BC and before. So who are the people, before from 3000 BC to 600 BC, that we have this huge gap, 2500 years. And we are not told about anything about that. So my book is to help answer those questions. So now why this contradiction? The reason for this contradiction is that the history that we are learning and taught, even now, and not just in India, everywhere in the world, it's become a standard curriculum. This history was written during the British time, it's not the one recorded by Indians before that, but this is the history version that was created during the British time. And so what has happened is that 5,100 years of our very well documented history has been shrunk into 2,600 years of history, that is from 600 BC to present. Okay, so we lost 2,500 years, 500 years of history before that, and thousands of years of history before that. And then Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, Mahabharata, Ramayana, they're all historical people and texts got turned into mythology. Mythology is the study of myth. Myth, if you look at word myth is from mithya, Sanskrit word. It's a Sanskrit word. Myth means false. That's what it means. We have evidence to prove the historicity of all this. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Sri Krishna. In the same way, then Bhagavad Gita's age has been cut from 5,100 years to 2,100 years. If you do just a little quick Google search, you'll see first century BC as about Bhagavad Gita's date. So you can see from all the way from 3,100 to down to first century BC. And all these distortions remain, unfortunately, even after 77 years and almost 78 years of independence now. Now, I'm not the first person to do this or to do this research, we are very fortunate. In fact, all of us are very fortunate that some great people have done this work and dedicated a lifetime. But all the work is forgotten. Nobody knows about it. I didn't hear of any of this until I started my research. But now these are the people I would like to, and on whose shoulders I stand, and all of us are grateful to. So T.S. Narayan Sastry, he published a book on Age of Shankara in 1916. Unfortunately, he died soon after that. He had planned to publish a lot more about of his research. Then we have Krishnamacharya. He published a volume, History of Classical Sanskrit Literature in 1937. He knew T.S. Narayan Sastry, but so some of that, at least he covered up a little bit of that, Sastri's work. Then we have Pandit Kota Venkatachalam. He published many books, both in English and in Telugu in 50s. And so much of my work is very highly influenced by his work, and he did not contradict any of his previous work also. Mostly, he also used the previous work too. And then we have K.D. Setna. He published a book in 1989, The History of Ancient India in a New Light. So this book that my work is based on all this, and plus whatever new research that has come out of that. So it's a synthesis of all this. So I have dedicated my book to the truth in history and Mother India, and I also expressed the date not just in one, but about in 5 different calendars. And I'm making a statement with this. So if you see, the first one is Kali Yuga Shaka. So now Kali Yuga is not a myth. It's actually a calendar that is still followed. And it's being tracked. So it has been tracked ever since when it started. Then we have another calendar called Saptarshi Shaka. Otherwise it's also called Kashmir up there, and there's another name also. Kashmirians use this a lot. Nowadays, maybe, hardly anybody knows about it, but just 100 years ago itself, so, most Kashmiri Hindus knew about this Saptarshi calendar. And then we have, most of you, I think, probably familiar with the Vikram Samvat. There is Vikram Samvat, which is mostly North India and Gujarat, Western India, as well as Nepal. It's Nepal's official calendar. And there are 2 versions of Vikram Samvat. The Gujarati Vikram Samvat is 7 months behind the rest of the Vikram Samvat for whatever reason. So we have Chaitri Vikram Samvat, and we have the Kartiki Vikram Samvat. So current year is 2081-82, depending on which calendar you follow. And then we have, of course, the AD is Annadanino, it's a Latin word. And then Shalivansaka. Shalivansaka, by the way, I did not know this. It is India's official national calendar. I don't know if any of you knew this, but that's a fact. Yeah. And I want to share with you, so this is about 31 years old calendar. And let's see. I don't know if okay. Yeah, it does read there, but yeah, the light blinds it. But I have highlighted Shalyavan Saka, Vikram Samvat, and just right, and right below that is Kali Yuga Shaka. My apologies to those who cannot read Devanagari, but It's here. So our calendars have been historically tracking Kali Yuga Shaka. That's 5126 because this was last year. Current is 5127. I also want to say this. So there we have, because of this long history of India and the large size, we have many calendars, and these are just a few calendars, many ancient calendars. So there is a calendar called Yudhishthira Shaka, and I will show some evidence of that as well. And then soon after that, the Kali Yuga Shaka. So there's only 36 years difference between the two. And then after that is Saptarshi Shaka, which is Saptarshi Shaka is actually even older, but it has a cycle of 2,700 years. So that cycle, another new cycle started, Saptarshi Shaka, in 3076 BC. So about 25 years after the Kali Yuga started. And then we have, this is Shaka of Jains also, which you will find in Jain literature, as well as then much more recently. There are in between also, there's Buddha Nirvana and Jain Samvat, and there are so many calendars. So we have then Malavagana Shaka, which was used in the 725 BC. And we have then Shaka, which is Shaka means, Shaka has two meanings. Shaka means calendar. When we say Shalivan Shaka means it's a calendar, somewhat. But when then Shaka Kala, that means a Shaka, it refers to Shaka people. It's like Iranian, essentially. So we have the Shaka Kala, there's Shaka Nupakala, that is 550 BC. And then after that, we have some more calendars, Sri Harsha Samvat, and then of course Vikram Samvat. Gupta Yuga also, yeah, when Gupta's ruled, and Vikram Samvat, Salivan Samvat. So, evidence for Yudhishthira Shaka. There is an inscription. So this is reported by the colonial, in the journals, that they found an inscription. This was about 200 years ago. And that inscription was dated Yudhishthira Shaka 160. This was somewhere in South India, Karnataka was somewhere in that area. And so when you translate it, that's 2970 BC. And so I have given the reference there. Then Acharya lineage, that is Shankaracharya Parampara. Adi Shankara, I'll come to that. So the Adi Shankara was born in 509 BC, not 788 AD that we are taught, and that's the standard of the textbooks today. But so, putting that aside, so the first 500 years of Parampara of Dwarka Mata was recorded in Yudhishthira Shaka, and that's in my book here. And it's available in Dwarka Mata also, and I've seen that personally myself. So that's the proof, that just couple proofs for evidence for Yudhishthira Shaka. Evidence for Kali Yuga Shaka, very extensive evidence now. Again, by the same colonial historians. Okay, some early historians were, the history was distorted less. It is the later on that, the history got really distorted. The work had just started at that time, in early 1800s. By 1880, 90, the distortion had been more or less completed. So, Kali Yuga inscription dated Kali Yuga 600. Then Nepal Rajvamshavali. Nepal Rajvamshavali extensively used Kali Yuga Shaka in recording their history. And so there's a date of 1234 recorded there, and then Adi Shankara's birth is recorded in Kali Yuga 2593. And then Vikramaditya's birth is recorded in Jyoti Vidabharana, even in Bhavishya Purana. Okay, so Bhavishya Purana 3000, Kali Yuga 3000 years completed of Kali Yuga, that's what it says, so 3001. And then Kalidasa states, Kalidasa states in Jyoti Vidabharana, his date of composing the text, 3068 Kali Yuga. And Bhaskaracharya states his date, Kali Yuga 3180. And then you see the Aryabhatta stating his date, Kali Yuga 3600. And then we have Aihole inscription in Karnataka that records Kali Yuga 3735. So you can see we have a long, extensive history of Kali Yuga being used as a calendar. And this is just a graphical representation. Or this is, these are the dates recorded in Nepal Rajvamshavali itself, various Kali Yuga dates, going back all the way from 3200 BC down to 1000 AD or so. we have another evidence, and this is also from the Westerners. There's a text called Indica that some of you might have heard of. That's Megasthenes was an ambassador in the court of what they call Sandracotus, and we'll come to come to that. Who was the Sandracotus? But Megasthenes was a Greek ambassador in Patliputra of uh, the the emperor, and so when Alexander came, some of his people recorded that they were told that by that time, that is, Alexander came to India in 326 BC. So by that time, they knew of 154 kings whose total reign was 6,451 years. So if you add 6,451 years to 326 BC, it takes you to 677, 67, 77 BC. So, tracking the number of years, 66,451 years, is possible only when there's a calendar. Nobody can otherwise keep track of the years if there's no calendar. Okay, so that proves that there was a calendar, at least that went back to as old as 6777 BC. Now we have another evidence which brings us to the same date, and there is a book written by Alexander Cunningham. By the way, he was the first director of the Archaeological Survey of India in India, and he has written a book called Book of Indian Eras. And in that era, he mentions that the Saptashi Samvat likely started in 6777 BC. Okay, so we have two independent sources coming to the same point here. Now I come to the distortion of our timeline, the chronology. So the pointer is not going to work anyway, but on the left-hand side is the true timeline, the true chronology. On the right-hand side is what is currently in vogue everywhere. So we actually have the Mahabharata war that did happen in 3139 BC. Kali Yuga started all that. But then you look at major distortion. Gautam Buddha, as you see, Gautam Buddha there. So about that. So Gautam Buddha's true date is 1887 to 1807 BC. So 19th century BC. What the world today believes or the world is taught is 563 to 483 BC. So 6th century BC approximately. 1300 years less, 1300 years post-dated. Same thing with the Maurya dynasty, Gupta. So Maurya dynasty also actually was in 1500 BC. Okay, then Gupta dynasty was in 300 BC and not 300 AD, that we are told. And then Shankaracharya's true date is, as I mentioned, 509 BC as opposed to 788 AD, again about 1300 years of difference. And I'll tell you why this 1300 years of difference. There's a reason, very good reason for that. And some of the laters, they didn't have enough room, so then, Varamira and all, they got shortened by about 500-600 years. When Kalidas actually instead of belonging to 1st century BC, they put the 1st century BC AD to 5th, 6th century. Even they're not sure which one. So this is how the history of the false history began. Bengal fell, the first state in India to fall to the East India Company in 1757. In 1784, Asiatic Society was formed by William Jones, 1784. And so they wanted to learn more about India and the East. So in the beginning, till 1829, so that is for more than 50 years, only the Europeans were allowed to be the members of the society. No Indian was allowed to be a member. And during that time, a lot of work appears to have happened. William Jones was very skeptical he had heard that India's history is very ancient from the Pandits in Bengal, but he dismissed that. He didn't believe it. Why? The reason for that. So he staunchly believed and not just he, everybody, all the Europeans at that time, most, I would not say all, but most Europeans at that time believed in the Christian version of history. That is, the world came into existence in 4006 BC. Right now, we might find it laughable. Okay, nobody believes that now. But 200 years ago, that was the state of European knowledge. That world began. World didn't exist before 4006 BC. And so, and there are a lot of things happened after that, so the Indian history cannot go to 3000 BC and beyond. Then, William Jones also believed that the Greek history is the oldest in the world. And since Greek dates go to 600 BC or so, there's no way that Indian history can go back to that far. And that's, you can see that how Indian history was brought down to about 600 BC. That's so that it's no older than Greek history. And so with his belief, they started tampering with India's chronology now. And so they have all the dynastic lists were there, and this is from their paper, the paper published by William Jones in 1799. Okay, this is not coming from me. This is from his paper. And so he had all this chronological record. And there is some error in that, but mostly this is true. But he did not accept this chronological record going back to 3100 BC. So, so there is a Brodha dynasty, then Pradyuta dynasty, and then Sishunaga dynasty, and then Nanda, and then Maurya dynasty, Shunga dynasty, Kanva dynasty, Andhra dynasty, and then there is a Gupta dynasty. I mean, yeah, Gupta comes later, not there, but Andhra dynasty, the last king there. This is the table that he prepared. These are his tables. These are just essentially photocopy of the tables published in the journal, 1799, by William Jones. You can see the name on the first table on the left-hand side. You can see the name Abhimanyu, son of Arjuna, if you can read that. He puts him in 2000 BC. He at least accepted the Abhimanyu as a historical person and put him in 3000 BC instead of 3000. I mean, instead of 3000 BC, put him in 2000 BC. Okay. Then Pradyota and then Buddha, put Buddha in 1000 BC. Okay. So you can see. So he's already brought it down by 1,000 years. Okay. And then there's Vikramaditya also, which right now we are told is mythical. And then similarly, then you can see the proof. I said that he believed in the Christian version of history that world began in 4006 BC. Proof is this. He prepared this right-hand chart, the year from 1788. That is 1788 is when he made the table. And 5794 years before 1788, if you do a simple math, that's 4006 BC. So in 4006 BC, Adam and Manu, and then he puts Manu. So on the left-hand column, the Christian or Muslim label, and then middle column is Hindu, and then the right-hand column is year of the world, how many years before. Okay, so you can see that Adam and Noah, and then deluge, and Noah ruled for 950 years, and then deluge happened. And then we have Hiranyakashipu, and then Bali, and the Rama in the middle column, Rama age 3. Now age 2, 3, this is our age 1 is Satya Yuga, and then Treta Yuga and Dwapar Yuga. And that's what he means by age 1, 2, 3, 4. He's trying to reconcile the Indian history with the Christian history. That's what this table is proving. And so then he puts, all this, you can see. So this is the proof that he believed in 4006 BC. This was his. This is, nobody can argue against this proof now. So now we come to, as I mentioned, Megasthenes was an ambassador in Patliputra. And all the Greek sources mention, ancient Greek sources mention that there was a king called Sandrakotas. This is how they pronounced this. So the question is, who is the Sandrakotas? So William Jones proposed that the Sandrakotas was Chandragupta. Now that is correct. It was Chandragupta. But now there's a problem here, and that Chandragupta, and he called him Chandragupta Maurya. He equated him to Chandragupta Maurya. The reality is that he was actually Chandragupta, one of the Gupta dynasty, and not Maurya. So Maurya dynasty was in 1500 BC. By bringing Chandragupta Maurya to 300 BC, 1200 years of India's history was gone. So this is a monumental blunder that they have done. And then what happened was that this was the seat anchor. This was the basis of writing the chronology of India. So based on this, now Gautam Buddha was about 200-300 years before Chandragupta Maurya. So put him to about 600 BC, 563, related to Chandragupta Maurya. Because Chandragupta Maurya is from, instead of 1500 BC, now 300 BC. Then Ashoka is grandson of Chandragupta Maurya. So, well, naturally he comes later. Okay. So all this dating, Ashoka, Chandragupta Maurya, Gautam Buddha, Adi Shankaracharya, all these dates came down by 1300, about 12 to 1400 BC. 12 to 1400 years. Kanishka also came down by about that much time. So after that, nothing, then they were looking at India's Puranas, and nothing in India's Puranas matched with their new basis, naturally. Okay, they have a very wrong basis. So nothing in the Puranas match. So what they now declared that the India's Puranas are not reliable. They are useless. The fact is that they use India's Puranas to actually rewrite India's history. They pick the names of the kings and dynasties, but assign their own timeline. And then they discarded some kings and dynasties as they felt like it. So here is an evidence. This is a Puranas were now being edited by colonial historians. And this is the evidence, it's the original verse and then the altered verse. Without going into the meaning of it, what it's trying to do is that, so if you, for those who can read, so Saptarshaya, that is referring to the Saptarshi Samvat, the calendar. And then Pranshu Pradiptin Agnina Samaha. So what you can see that in Devanagari, the bottom one is the original verse. And then in the middle is, that's the altered verse. So the Vayu Purana actually is carrying that altered verse. And the Matsya Purana, luckily, is still carrying the original verse. But by doing these changes, okay, he tried to include 4 more generations in the same timeline, essentially. So he used the word, so he Pradipta, he replaced Pradipta by Pratipa. Who was Pratipa? Pratipa was Shantanu's father. And who was Shantanu? Shantanu was Bhishma's father. So Pratipa, Shantanu, then we come down to Pandu. So about 4 generations are included in the same timeline now. So point is that they were using Puranas to write history, which we have been told, Puranas are just simply cock and bull stories, and just points to, the message is to be conveyed. That's all. So that's not the fact. And so this is what happened, that we have the true history, and then we have the colonial version of history. This is what happened. Tell me, I'm not keeping track of the timeline, but these are the sources of our history. So we have, the Puranas are main source of history. There are 5 main Puranas which contain the chronological information. And then we have Kali Yuga Raj Vrittanta. This is the text. It is not to be found right now, but it has been quoted. And so that's how we know about it. And then we have Raj Tarangini, History of Kashmir, which is, it records 5,000 years of history of Kashmir. We have Nepal Rajvanshavali, I mentioned that. And chapter 3 in my book goes into more detail. I want to share this with you. We have extensive genealogy Vanshavalis. You can see, so I want to highlight number 7, Yayatis had 5 sons. Yadu, from Yadu, we have Yadavs, and Sri Krishna is a descendant of Yadu, 50 generations later. And then you'll see some familiar names. We have Dushyanta and his son Bharat. And then we have Hasti, who founded Hastinapur. And then we have Kuru, based on whom we have Kurukshetra. And then from Kuru, we have then 2 branches coming down. And so one is the Hastinapur branch, and going to Dhritarashtra and Pandu. And then we have on the right-hand side, a branch which also again have 2 more branches, so Chedi and Magad king. So we get Magad dynasty from there. We get Jarasandha there. And so that's, so you can see that, we have, all this cannot be made up. I have a similar genealogy for Rama also, and Gautam Buddha also. So we have full record of chronology beginning from Mahabharata war. And, it's Mahabharata war itself is vouched by independent sources, Kashmir's Rajtarangini, Nepal Rajvanshawali, and our Puranas, three independent sources. We have, so currently, so many people have tried to date the war based on astronomical positions, and some of them are dated exactly as 31, 39. There are some others who date differently. And we have also inscriptional evidence. I just want to mention this. So this is the Aihole inscription in Karnataka, which is there. And then on the right-hand side, Mahabharata mentions in Magadha, present-day Rajgiri, which is Girivraj, original name, surrounded by 5 mountains. Google Map shows that it's surrounded by 5 mountains. See the accuracy of the information in Mahabharata. And so many archaeological sites. We all only hear of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. There are hundreds or thousands of sites, and majority of the sites are actually even bigger of the Kalibangan and Rakigari. Rakigari is the biggest archaeological site currently. And I also want to show you that majority of the sites are actually located on the Saraswati basin, ancient Saraswati River, which dried up in about 1900 BC. Saraswati River flowed parallel to Sindhu. So as you can see, the cluster of Kalibangan, Rakigari, these are all on Saraswati basin, much fewer on Sindhu. So it tells you Saraswati is not a myth. And so with this, I'd like to, if whatever time we have, any questions are welcome. These are the sites in Gujarat, Lothal and Dholavira in Kutch. Yeah, please. Take care of the gaps. All those. Thank you. All of I actually start of value calendar. Correct. Correct. So, correct. Correct. That would be right slaves. Or profile as it itself over the I about 500 or 5,000 years. There is a quantum loss of X abundance of the X. This is a huge. Right. And the biologic all they're all a being. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So that right there, very good. Awesome. Awesome. Right. That would also that as part of the being. That would be. Yeah, true. Yeah, you're very right. Yeah. So that is not all. No. So I'm aware of the changes that have been recently made in I think the 8th grade textbook, but those changes are mainly, to the post 1200 AD history mainly. Okay, yeah. So And I didn't go into the post-1200 AD history because the research is focused on the timeline. So we don't have the timeline problem there. It's the other problem there. And so I wanted to, I consider this timeline as a very critical piece of, critical. The timeline is a foundation, a backbone of history. If we have the timeline wrong, history is wrong. So you have to have the timeline right to get the right history. So that's it. So I think to really reclaim our 5,000 years of documented history, we have to establish that timeline. And that's hence my focus there. Please. Yeah. So all I have done is, I have not done extensive research on that at all. I have looked at the genealogy of it. And so Appendix 4 in my book has a genealogy starting from Ikshvaku. So Bhagwan Rama was 65th generation starting from Ikshvaku. And then 96th generation from starting from Ikshvaku, that is 31st generation or 31 generations after Sri Rama fought in the Mahabharata war. So we have 96 generation from Ikshvaku fighting the Mahabharata war. So that will give us some idea, assign maybe 25, 30 years per generation. I don't know what's the right number. Also, some people have done a dating by astronomical positions, and that also I have mentioned in my book, and they date 5114 BC, I think. So roughly what Mahabharata was 3139 BC. So roughly what about approximately 2000 years before the Mahabharata war. So that's the, thank you. Welcome. So, yeah, please. So I haven't gone too much into it, but I think like it is believed that Rama was born at in the end of the Treta Yuga, and then so something like that, and from Kali Yuga onwards, we have a reliable calendar. Before that, like we are told that, okay, that's the Dwapar Yuga was twice as long as Kali Yuga, and then the 864,000. And so really, things, I don't want to go in there, because then it really, so I think if we can at least get our last 5,000 years of history right, we have achieved a lot, I believe. So I think that's where I would like to focus on. Yeah.
And then Treta is the 3 times,
Yeah.
and Satyuga is 4 times.
Right.
So Kala Yuga is considered the unit of the history. I mean, how do you?
So
what?
I am using Kali Yuga calendar here. So this one, I'm not using just only that only. And that calendar is just like any other calendar that we use today. So my point is that current year of Kali Yuga is 5127. And as I showed evidence that this calendar has been used to record various dates. In fact, like our greats, Kalidasa, Varamihira, and Bhaskaracharya, so many, all these people have recorded their dates in Kali Yuga, even Shankaracharya's date. Yeah. Yeah, and so I didn't want to go into, because really again, we need to get our say for example, it was Chandragupta Gupta. Let's get Shankaracharya's date right. Let's get Gautam Buddha's date right. Let's get Maurya dynasty's date right. It's Chandragupta Gupta and not Chandragupta Maurya during Alexander's time. Let's get this right, and then we can put back Vikramaditya there, because they shortened the history, so they took out Vikramaditya and Shalivan and called him mythical. Vikramaditya was one of the greatest kings, only next to Sri Rama and Sri Krishna. And we are such great people have been just taken out of our history, erased from history right now. And so
a very interesting presentation. Would love to read your book. Just a few observations I just want to table. As per Matsya Puran, Ram was pre-Vedic, and there is no mention of Ram in Vedas. So, there is some, at least, confusion in my head as to why Ram is not mentioned in Vedas. Okay, number one. Number two, I can easily see the motivation of a Christian notion of the world being 6,000 years old, and therefore to compress everything else to fit into that ideology. That motivation is absolutely understandable, okay, as to why they did that. But the question is that to this extent, what you're also saying is that you do endorse the fact because there are two theories of Aryan immigration versus Aryan being a part of India who went away. Okay, so this chronology would actually endorse the second version, which is that actually Aryans are originals of India, and then they migrated from India to other places. So that is the second observation. The third observation is this, that and which I have noticed everywhere, is that anytime any evidence is given, you typically, everybody quotes historical evidence, you typically quote Megasthenes, Ibn Battuta, or a British writer. There are no Indian historians, okay, who are quoted in our this thing. So I just want to park that thought in terms of, we are finally dependent. All our conclusions and evidences are based on somebody else telling us about our history rather than anything else.
So actually, on that point, on that last point, I agree with your earlier points that this, my book and my research is essentially calling the Aryan invasion a myth because we have documented 5,000 years of history and we are told that the Aryan invasion happened in 1500 BC, which is right in the middle of our history. So this completely refutes that. That's one. Number two, now on your last point, we are totally dependent on foreigners' written history. That's not actually true. I am quoting this because people believe, or most of the audience wants to believe what the foreigners have said because they don't trust us. But in my book, I have quoted I quoted the dates from Kalidasa's date.